that under the bill that's now being negotiated in the House and in the Senate rather, passed the House, if you took the European calculus to 2050 and the American calculus to 2050, assuming no breakthroughs in technology, just doing what we think we're going to do, the difference is 1.5 parts per million in CO2 in the atmosphere. It is a non-event. Okay? Don't get bogged down on the numbers. It's the wrong thing to be focused on. Also, you may have missed this, brand new, is the empowering of the Environmental Protection Agency, part of the executive branch of our government, so it's under the President's control, not Congress's, has declared CO2 emissions a dangerous and hazardous substance and is going after the largest polluters, now issuing rules. It's a stick in the closet. He's going to use that in part to get a successful energy bill through Congress. But if Congress fails to act, the EPA can go after the power producers to make them, to force them to reduce emissions. Very important. Don't get bogged down in U.S. politics. We're going to talk about the future here in a minute. Again, lots of more investment, $150 billion a year over the next 10 years in government investment in clean energy, commitments to double production of alternative energy in 3 years, upgrade efficiency of 75% of all the federal buildings. Executive order came out in October, put 1 million hybrid vehicles on the road by 2015. We'll crush that number, be way past that. Reduce CO2 emissions, we talked about that, and transfer the forming the economy, science, technology, and efficiency. That last piece is a sort of sounds like a buzzword, but let me tell you how important that is. Today, our world has actually been driven by the investments that the United States government made in raw technology. I will give you examples. Anybody here been on the internet in the last 24 hours? Come on, you can be truthful. Okay, that was invented by the DOD, Department of Defense, through a thing. It was a thing called ARPANET, and they just put dollars into it. It was raw investment. And then it was commercialized and became the internet. Anybody here have a cell phone? You have a cell phone, and all right. So the reason the cell phones are cheap is because of the investment by the United States government in the transition. They put tons of billions and billions of dollars into raw research and then acquisition. If the United States government had not, forget about the invention of the processor chip, if they had not invested in its commercialization and wide-scale distribution, today your cell phone would cost how much per cell phone? Think, guess. You can make it in euros if you want. 100 euros? 500 euros? 10,000. 10,000, you're close. 10,000 US dollars. They're about 7,500 euros what your phone would cost today. Again, and by the way, in case you don't know this, in 1989, not that long ago, the first commercial Motorola clamshell personal cell phone, the kinds that you open up that we count on today for 20 bucks, was on the market. You could buy it in any cell phone store in the US with a bargain basement price 20 years ago of $3,000 per phone. All of those innovations and their commercialization and their affordability and their ability to be distributed and effective in the world came because of huge investment by the United States government in hard science with no expectation of return. And President Obama is now putting more dollars into this than has been seen by the US since the days of the Apollo space program. The return will not be immediate. People, you'll read, the press will be angry because there's no easy solution. Well, okay, there's no easy solution. And they'll be angry because there isn't a solution tomorrow. But I can tell you that this is bread on the water. These dollars spent today will have exactly the same kind of unforeseen but powerful consequences. And it may happen years after Barack Obama's term as president, even after a second term. But that's the way technology gets driven, by dollars and by leadership at the top, and that's what's happening. This is action all across America. You have to understand federalism in America. Every state is like a country in the EU, and they do their own thing. Most states have already put in requirements that effectively put them in line with Copenhagen. Maybe not a good number of them. I'll give you an example in my home state of Colorado. 5 years ago now, the voters of the state voted to mandate the utilities. The government legislature didn't do it. The voters forced it on the ballot to force utilities to get 10% of their power from renewables. That passed. 2 years later, they doubled it. And when I left Colorado to come to Helsinki, they were in the process of making it a 30% mandate for renewable power. You see all across the country this is happening. Last year alone in the United States, there were 54 different sets of regulations imposed by states on CO2 emissions. In California, right now, 2 weeks ago, they passed a law. It is now the law mandating that flat screen televisions become 40% more efficient within 2 years. What does that mean? It means two things. First of all, when implemented, consumers in California will save $1 billion a year on their utility bills. They will begin to learn that efficiency equals good for me, and that it's not a bad thing. It also means that the reduction in power demand, California does not have to build an additional 500 megawatt power plant. That is the same as if I went and turned off one of Finland's operating nuclear power plants. Click, simply because TV sets are more efficient. And what happens in California sweeps across all 49 other states and to Europe. And just with the stroke of the pen, California has made that change. You didn't read about it. Last year, the United States installed more wind power electrical generation than coal power electrical generation. Small revolution, you may have missed it. Another one. I'll give you one you probably didn't read in the papers in the run-up to COP15. The 8th largest economy in the world has adopted a 15% mandatory CO2 cut by 2020, an immediate cap in trade as their opening statutory requirement. And that would be what country? Yeah, California. The 8th largest economy in the world has already done this. And what happens in California, just as one example, goes right across the board. Science and economics. So here's where we talk about the future. What have I got till 5 minutes? 10 minutes, all right? You tell me that. So this is where it gets fun. And this is where Finland has an opportunity to knock the cover off the ball. Okay? So all that bad news, it's good news in its own perverse way. Okay? You can see it. These waves of innovation, you'll get the slide and blah, blah, blah. Okay? Right here is where we are. We are on the cusp of the greatest revolution since the Industrial Revolution, except it's going to have to happen in 20 years and not 100 years. The entire global economy, $100 trillion GDP a year, $100 trillion economy has been based worldwide on cheap, abundant fossil fuel. Now, I don't care whether you believe in global warming or you don't. I don't care whether you want to save the polar bear or eat the polar bear. I mean, I personally do, but I don't care from a business standpoint. I showed you the facts on the gas and the oil and where prices go. The fact of the matter is, we are going to have to reinvent our relationship with energy. If you're driven by climate change, great. If you think climate change is hooey, great. Doesn't matter. The future is coming, and the future does not look like the present, period, when it comes to energy. And because you have to reinvent an entire world economy, every single aspect of the business as we know it today presents opportunity, an unrivaled opportunity. I'm a sales guy, you may have noticed. I was raised in a business family in New York where we had to go out every day and sell something for a living. As a salesman, I'm not going to talk about a product. You'll get this, Bossy. You have a product to sell. Most of you have products to sell. Most products having a niche market, or maybe even a wide market, whatever it is. Some people want a yellow tie, but not everybody. Some people want a red tie, but not everybody. Some people need glasses, some people don't. Some people need haircuts, some people don't. It's hard to hide. What are you laughing at?